everyone. I'd ask that you'd please rise as Pastor Kate Bruns leads us in our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. O Lord our God, in the midst of the heat and humidity of summer days, you gather us here to be about the business of our community. Bring your wisdom that our discussion of agenda topics may be fruitful. Bring your strength that our city's representatives may be bold and courageous in their decision-making. Bring your focus on the connectedness of the traditions of the past, the realities of the present, and the opportunities for the future. And Lord God, bless the deliberations of this night with your grace and your peace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
But it's 5:30, July 16th, 2018. I'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Here. Sorry. Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Here. We have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, and I'll call on City Administrator Andrew Bremseth if we have any additions or corrections to the agenda.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the council, good evening. Under old business this evening, we are going to add a quick update from the mayor regarding the 501c3 nonprofit economic development group that we gave him the permission to appoint members to at the last meeting. So just a quick update, and the mayor will introduce Bruce Thome as well on behalf of the Greater Fergus Falls.
All right, with that, we have a...
Oh, yes, and Your Honor, members, I also need to mention that there was a request earlier today from a interested party to remove item number 6 from the consent agenda, which is related to the RFP for fundraising feasibility study for the Aquatic Center, and wanting to have separate discussion regarding that item.
So we'll just have that under, after the consent agenda?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, with those, that addition, that correction, do I have a motion to accept?
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Scott, thank you. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Under public hearings, we'll have 2 public hearings this evening. The first is a public hearing for the Amy Court vacation. I'll call on City Engineer Byron Ybarro.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good evening, members. At the last council meeting on July 2nd, the City Council accepted a vacation petition for the platted Amy Court located in Block 11, Block 12 of the Aspen Plat to City of Fergus Falls. The original Aspen Plat was recorded in 1995. The new fee title owners of the lots located in Block 11 and 12 has requested vacation of the Amy Court that's illustrated on the projector right there. And I'll go to that one more moment to get a little bit more detail of what we're vacating. But this request was primarily driven for their efforts to replat this particular area. So since then, the council setting the public hearing date, mail notices were sent to all abutting property owners adjacent to Amy Court and along with the Public Utilities Company. Also, I want to note, since the petition was received, the president representative of Block 38, Aspen Townhomes, which abuts to the north of this property, they have reviewed and also consented to the vacation as presented. So I'll just approach one moment up here. Essentially, highlighted yellow is Amy Court as dedicated back in the 1995 plat. Per ordinance, this 50-foot right-of-way would be split in half and reverted to the abutted owners. That being said, per this exhibit, each one of these easement descriptions for this abutting property will be recorded and reverted back to the adjacent property owner. As noted up on the north there, on the notice, the fee title owner under proposed exhibit right here will be retaining all of that property with this new associated preliminary plat. So at this time, to start the process, I'm requesting Your Honor to open up the public hearing for those to be heard on this matter.
Thank you, Brian. At this time, I will open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to the matter, please step to the lectern, state your name, and any thoughts you have on the subject. Hearing none, we will close the hearing, and it's back to the council. And the direction we're looking for is a motion.
Yes, the direction is for authorize the city attorney to prepare the necessary vacation ordinance as required. There'll be a first, second, and then a final publication of this ordinance to complete this process.
Thank you, Brian. Is there any questions of the council? If not, is there a motion, Director?
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
City Attorney. Thank you,
I'll
Darren.
second that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Brian. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for annexation of land from Fergus Falls Township, and I would ask our city administrator, Andrew Brumseth, to give us a brief update
Yes.
before we open the hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the council. As you recall, a few months ago, we talked about the annexation of 5 tracts of property in Fergus Falls Township. All 5 of these tracts, and Lynn's putting them up on the screen here, are surrounded by the city currently today. So to annex them, we do that by ordinance. We do not have an orderly annexation agreement in place with Fergus Falls Township. That expired at the end of 2016. So as the part of the process of annexing by ordinance, we have to hold a public hearing. That public hearing is scheduled for tonight. It was set a few months back when we discussed this as a council. As I indicated, there's 5 tracts of land that are affected by this, one of them being Corby Contracting out past Walmart on 210. The other 4 are in the area of the I-94 Speedway. There's a Michelson tract, there's a Great Plains Natural Gas Company tract, an Anderson tract, and a Partain tract. So tonight's the public hearing, and there's a first reading of Ordinance 71 that will be entertained by the council later on in the agenda related to this annexation.
Thank you, Andrew. With that, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to the issue, please step to the lectern. Yes, sir.
My name is Gary Corby, and I'm treasurer of Corby Contracting Company, and some of you I know we do business with, and some of you I know we've had businesses in your families. So we received your notice of annexation on May 21st, and we would just like to go on record saying we are against the annexation. Can you all hear me all right?
Yep.
We deem the area to be not urban and not suburban we're in. We have not had an impact on the area for it to become urban or suburban in character. The only characteristic of the area that affects the urban and suburban status would be Riverdale and Sundown Acres behind us. Corby Contracting thinks it's also important to maintain their direct access to the 210 highway, 10-ton highway. So I guess the questions we have is, first, why does the city want an access? The second question is, what characteristic did the city deem the area to be urban or suburban? So after we got our notice, we went into statute 414-033 and questioned the language of subdivision 2, condition clause 2, and we tried to interpret whether it meant that the land had to be urban and suburban and surrounded by municipal. It has to be both of those. Or does it mean that if the land is surrounded by municipal land, it becomes urban and suburban? So we contacted Star Holman of the Municipal Boundaries Adjustment Board and asked her to interpret it for us. Her response was the property needed to be both deemed urban and suburban and total surrounded by annexation for ordinance. Mrs. Holman on the definition deemed urban and suburban and said there is no definition for chapter 14. That means there seems to be nothing saying exactly what urban and suburban is for annexation by ordinance. She also said that just because property is surrounded by a municipality does not make it urban or suburban, according to 414. We've also contacted Tom Swenson of Minnesota DOT, Detroit Lake Traffic Engineer, and we asked him for a copy of the DOT study conducted on Highway 210 from Fergus Falls to Breckenridge about raising the speed limit from 55 to 60. The speed limit on that stretch of roadway was from intersection 75 in Breckenridge to Fergus Falls to Harvest Home, where the road turns to 60 miles an hour. The speed limit on that stretch of road is 60. The study found that its area to be rural agricultural with several businesses scattered throughout, including gas stations, seed company, church, cat equipment dealer, and grain storage. We do not believe that MnDOT would allow maximum speed on two-lane road in an area deemed to be urban and suburban for character. We asked the city reevaluate their deeming of our property as urban, suburban, or soon to become. We'd also like to point out that other than the houses in Riverdale and Sundown Acre development behind us, which we would consider just a rural development by the river, there's not been much change in our area. We have two residents to the west of us that have been there for 40 years. The Life Church was built in '06. Ziegler was built in '96. The transfer station was '06, '07, and the livestock barn. I don't know how long that's been up there. On May 20th, 1996, we furnished the Fergus Planning Commission a letter on our concerns going forward with the adjacent lands to the proposed Riverdale addition. The city made a negative declaration on the EAW and places one of the conditions that the developer and the city make every effort to address issues the Corby contracting letter. We assume these issues will need to be addressed again as approved by City Council June 3rd, 1996. We are also, we order a lot of bridge material, have it brought into our site there for processing. Sometimes it's $80,000 worth of material. And if we're putting a 1/2 cent sales tax, it's gonna hurt. If there's any way we can stay away from that. We have a lot of bridge material, big steel comes in there. I'm gonna give you a brief history of Corby Contracting. My father, Austin Corby, started it in 1948 after he returned from World War II. And at that time he started building bridges for the state of Minnesota. In '54 he moved to Fergus Falls permanently and purchased property from the John Death's Construction Company, if anybody remembers who they are, on Junus Avenue. He used to have a shop there. In '57, Austin moved his business to West Town to his present location for more room. In '78, Austin incorporated in Minnesota with his wife and 4 sons. The corporation is now owned by 2 sons and employs 3rd and 4th generation bridge builders of Austin's. The corporation's primary business is contracting and building bridges in western Minnesota and related local crane services. Corby Contracting has been doing bridges for 70 years, in Fergus Falls for 64 years, and its present location for 60 years. Now, we're doing contracts with the MnDOT all the time, and we're working over rivers, so we're dealing with the Minnesota DNR, the federal DNR, Corps of Engineers, IRS, motor carriers, MnDOT, Minnesota Revenue, MNSHA, OSHA, Labor Compliance, PCA, MPC, Minnesota Commercial, and we're not looking for another hoop. And when this all started, one of the relatives come up and gave me Chapter 7 zoning of Fergus Falls, and you know, I don't think there's enough time in my life to read all this and understand it. We cover from Iowa to the northwest angle. We work for DNR, many counties, western half. And we are in 3 states generating income for this area. We also spend a lot of money in these local real estates. Fergus Falls is our home, and if annexed, the city will have our cooperation. If you have any questions for me, anybody, or?
Thank you, Mr. Corby. Anyone on the council have any questions for Mr. Corby?
One point of clarification, if he sells a bridge, would that have the half-cent sales tax on it?
It follows the general sales tax is all I'll say on that. I can't interpret
Right. Sure.
on that. But whatever the general sales tax is, that's what the local is on. So if he's paying sales tax on supplies, it depends on how it's priced and, you know,
But if it's not sold in Fergus Falls, it wouldn't, would it?
correct.
Yeah, so it would have to sell a bridge in Fergus Falls.
Yeah, it's only within the city limits is
Yeah.
the local.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Corby.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Is anybody here from the township?
Anyone else here for the public hearing on the annexation? If not, we will close the public hearing, and the council will have an opportunity to discuss this if they wish. First reading, let me introduce the first reading later in the meeting. There are no bids to award this evening. Under petitions and communications, we will have a resolution acknowledging the retirement and years of service of Gordon Hajdukovic. Pardon me, I just have to find my resolution. I don't believe Gordon is here this evening, unfortunately, but there will be an event on at the 30th, July 30th, from 1 to 4 at the fire hall. 1 to 3 at the fire hall, so we'll make sure that we let people know about that. Here's the resolution that we're going to act on tonight. Whereas Gordon Hajdukovic has submitted his intent to retire effective July 31st, 2018, and whereas Gordon began his employment with the city of Fergus Falls on June 27th, 1983, as a community development director, and whereas on October 7th, 1991, Gordon became the department head for the Community Development Department. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Fergus Falls, Minnesota, to accept Gordon Hajdukovic his resignation and thank him for his 35 years of dedicated service to the City of Fergus Falls. The above and foregoing resolution was offered at a regular meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council held on July 16, 2018 by Councilmember Fish, who moved its adoption, and was seconded by Councilmember Rachels, and was adopted by the following vote. Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Armstead.
Yes.
Spiegel.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Hopper.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. I wish we had the opportunity to thank Gordon personally, but we'll get that opportunity on July 31st, I guess. So, thank you, Gordon, for everything you've done for the city. Next is an update on Phase 1 and 2 deconstruction of the Regional Treatment Center. I'll call on City Administrator, Brian Ybarro, I'm sorry, City Engineer Brian Ybarro. And I believe that Bruce Paulson from Stantec is also here to
Yes, thank you,
give us an
Your Honor.
update.
That's where, Bruce Paulson from Stantec here is going to give you an update on both Phase 1 and 2, where we're at. I know he has a presentation, some slides, so if you may, I'll turn it over to Bruce.
Thank you. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Honor, and City Council members. We've got a PowerPoint, and the pictures that I'll be speaking to are in the memo that I just handed out to everybody. This first part is regarding Building 32. And some of the issues that we ran into when Landwehr was removing Building 30, which is adjacent on the west side of Building 32. You can see in the first picture here showing Building 30 as it abutted to Building 32. When they were taking Building 30 down as part of the Phase 1 deconstruction, we found out that one of the floor slabs at the lower level was actually cut into and poured into the first width of brick on Building 32. slide.
Went to sleep.
Can we do slideshow and then it'll go from beginning? Is that where? Up on the top? And it's bigger.
Okay. This first slide is a photograph of the west side of Building 32, where Building 30 was removed from. You can see right above the two openings that have the OSB board, that's where the floor slab was actually cut into and then poured into the exterior width of brick on Building 32. Here's a closer picture showing that the exterior veneer brick has pulled away from the back at the area where the floor slab was being removed. Landwehr did, when this first started coming out, they immediately stopped and then went in and did a saw cut on the slab to remove as much of the concrete slab away from the wall, so there's remove less weight and cause that to continue to deteriorate. Also was made more apparent is this is at the northwest corner of Building 32. There's vertical cracking in the north face where the west wall is actually moving away from the north wall. We've got a similar condition on the east wall at the north corner doing the same thing. This is a photo that was taken prior to re-roofing Building 32, where the cricket dormer was removed when Building 30 was being taken down. In this photo, you can see the roof rafters. Due to the amount of water intrusion that had occurred over the years, some of those rafters required 5-inch nails in order to secure the plywood that was installed in order to get into solid material. There's just one small bent plate holding that lowest coping stone in place right now, and that was also taken apart when Building 30 was constructed, and so that's another area of concern. Photograph of exterior brick deterioration. Some of this is moisture and age of building, and some of it's also attributed to painting the face brick and retaining moisture behind the paint, causing the mortar joints to fail. Also on the north building, pretty much right at the middle, there's also another vertical crack that would need to be addressed if we want to do any level of stabilization on Building 32. Interior photograph in the main powerhouse area. On the left is one of the pilasters at the east wall, showing the face brick deterioration and loss of structural integrity for that pilaster. Another photo showing deterioration of the brick on the inside, which is enhancing the loss of structural integrity of the walls. And just another close-up looking up the pilaster. And then this is a photo of the north wall showing some of the roof repairs that have occurred, also showing a lot of holes in the roof that are contributing to deterioration of the building, as well as trying to show that right now the north wall is vertical. It's not moving in either direction, which is a good thing. So, and then this is the proposed wall bracing plan that we've prepared. Is basically adding concrete pads and steel, basically going to the existing brick pilasters, and then have steel members going vertically to stabilize the building and retain it for whatever period of time it needs to be done. In the memo that I distributed, our estimated cost for doing the bracing is somewhere between $100,000 and $120,000, along with approximately $10,000 for us to go through and prepare construction documents to do the bracing on Building 32. So,
Bruce, did you want to talk about the immediacy of these concerns and the temporary versus the long-term? And
yeah, and again, we haven't gotten to the point of determining how long we want this to be, for us to consider for the length of keeping Building 32 standing. Right now, Building 32 is part of the Phase 2 deconstruction for the campus, with the goal, hopefully, being able to go out for bids this fall for doing that work. We still have the 90% submittal to send to SHPO, and we have the public hearing on the EAW to respond to tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock. But we're hopeful that we can move that forward, and that the amount of time that Building 32 is standing could be as little as a year, and maybe even less.
so I noticed in your memo you talked about just determining whether, bracing the walls, which would be short-term. I mean, are we in jeopardy of actually having this building fall over on somebody? Or is it a matter of?
Yeah, but we don't think so. Short of extremely high winds, and we've had some fairly decent wind coming through this spring, and nothing's moving. We do have, Landwehr does have a snow fence that's beyond the fall zone for any of the walls right now, to try and keep people away from that. Fortunately, the amount of intrusion and vandalism at the campus has been slowing down as we've been moving through the Phase 1 deconstruction on the project. So that's a plus, but it seems like there's still one or two incidents of intrusion almost weekly. And I think the last one of the perpetrators actually got injured and ended up having to go to the emergency room for his actions, and then got a citation for it. So that's kind of where that's at. And leading through on the Phase 1 completion, we're expecting the pavement to be done on the roads before the end of the month, and then that will pretty much wrap up the Phase 1 project. So it's gone very well. Landwehr's done a great job, and so that's moving forward.
Any questions for the comment? Go ahead.
I mean, my recommendation would be that we put a 6-foot chain link fence around it and leave it, and put no trespassing signs and danger of falling material, and enter at your own risk. I don't see the point of spending $120,000 on the building. It's beyond renovation. The cost to renovate such a building would far exceed its value.
Well, plus it's on the Phase 2 demolition, which we're going out for bids. So I think, is everyone agreed? Unless something, unforeseen changes, we're not going to put it in.
I would sooner put the money in the chain link fence, to put the public, to make the public aware. The snow fence, obviously, it's plastic. They're going to climb over it, as we're seeing. And I think it's only prudent to do that with the state's money.
It would seem to me, is there a reason, I mean, that seems like the obvious thing to do. Is there a reason that we wouldn't?
At this point, no, there isn't.
So there's not something that we're not seeing up here?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And just as a bit of background, the reason that we did the snow fence to this point was trying to minimize the impact. We didn't want to create an obstacle that the vandals wanted to climb over by putting up a chain link fence. So we put up the snow fence, and thus far, they pretty much stayed away from 32 and what's left of building 30. So, but I agree, and my recommendation would be, as Councilmember Hicks said, is let's do a 6-foot chain link fence with no trespassing signs around the building to make it more protected.
Then Kyle can pick them up when they go to the emergency room and sign them.
Rod, did you have a comment?
Just overall, in the overall facility, looking at that, last year, I picked up bricks that had fallen off of West Detached. And I know that people can walk right up to that. And my question to you is, are those bricks still in danger of falling on that west side? And shouldn't we be having a fence there about 20 feet out from the building so no one can be hit? Because they fell right down where someone could have been hit.
Yep, I would agree. Very good point.
I just want to add that to the consideration so we look at the whole structure and not just one part and make sure that we're safe. But if we're going to get chain link fence, then we should consider your recommendations on where we would also need it. I believe we don't have any reason not to do that, I think,
Correct.
for
Yep.
safety. So
Yeah,
I'd just like to add that to the consideration for staff.
The west face of Building 27 does continue to shed brick on a pretty regular basis. That's probably the most deteriorated facade of all the buildings. And so I would agree that some deterrent needs to be installed to prevent people from walking right next to the building and have the potential of a brick hitting them.
And a question,
Yes,
a
Anthony,
question
go
then for
ahead.
Brian, could that be done with a change order to the current?
Yes, if I can speak to that, yes. And that's I like the feedback that I'm hearing right now with the council and everything. If that's a decision, we are nearing the completion of the contract and everything, paving and everything for phase 1 with landwork construction. And we have held off on this building till we got this assessment and everything done. Steps moving forward, we'll get the assessment completed, but we just want to give you an update to what the probable cost, what we're speaking of. So if that's a council's desire, is the next steps we will do is to figure out a permanent perimeter fence that encompasses building 32 right now at this point. We do have some, we need to sit back and look at a few of the openings that were proposed to close off and also some of the underlying foundations of building 30. We've had to stop short on those obviously for known reasons. So what we'll do is, I'll file a change order and do a safety fence if that's the council's desire, or a 6-foot chain link fence with the appropriate markers on that as well. We'll do that, and then that will help us close out, give us direction to close out this project.
Can I just add something to that? I mean, I'm assuming the safety fence they can climb over, but can we put barbed wire on the top? Or is there a reason why you can't install barbed wire? I think that's more of a deterrent on the top.
I guess I'll have to look at some guidance and everything like that. What depends, potentially like the razor wire, barbed wire, we can have enhanced measures on it, on that. But please note, some of the foundations, landware suspended activities and brought this to our attention because, some of these overall condition, there was piece of hole. So we'll have to, Bruce and I will have to sit back and see what we can do, accomplish it in the interest of safety too for the contractor.
We will need a resolution authorizing staff to pursue that change order. So Anthony,
I'd make that resolution, Your Honor.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Justin, roll call, please.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Speedall.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Everett.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Brian.
Any more? I guess we could pull up the PDF. This is a show of what's going on. The other one. There's another. Yep. I'm sorry. That one. This shows the current plan for the Phase 2 deconstruction. Basically, the area hatching in the center is showing what the site will look like with the removal of building 3, 25, and 32. And the discussion, the double hatched area across the center is basically reconstructing the drive lane That's currently between buildings 25 and 32, so we'd repave that to create a drive aisle there. We would eliminate the paving on the east side of building 32 so that the parking lot serving building 52, which is the storage building right now, would be kind of separated from the rest of the campus and try and minimize the access through that parking lot onto the rest of the campus.
Thank you, Bruce.
Okay, thank you.
Bruce.
If I could just add one thing too, tomorrow we have the public hearing for the Phase 2 EAW. Received the comments and everything, but that meeting will be here in this council chambers beginning at 5 till 7 p.m. with a presentation of the EAW beginning at 5:30 approximately. We'll double check on that. Once we get through all those comments and everything, we'll be presenting the more information with the council and necessary resolution that they must pass for a determination on that. So.
Thank you, Brian. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. There's a copy in your packets. There's also a copy on the wall. We've already removed item number 6. If anyone else has any other items they'd like to talk about, we'll remove them. But if not, I would entertain a resolution accepting the consent agenda with the exception of item 6.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brent. Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hoover.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Armisen.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Pepper.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item number 6 is a resolution authorizing proceeding with an RFP for a fundraising feasibility study for the Aquatic Center. I know there's at least one member who has requested, of the community who requested to speak to that. But before we get to that, maybe we could just have, just for the public, a quick background, those who weren't here on Wednesday or didn't watch that meeting, just where we're at with this. I know there's a number of members of the committee. Justin, do you want to just let people know where the committee's at and what this request entails?
Yeah, I can do that, Your Honor, thanks. So just a quick update, the committee has been involved in this for 2.5+ years, and through the process of this starting, we had talked with some key stakeholders in the community, which included the Y, the school district, and we've got, I think there's 8 or 9 community members that are on the committee. Since that time, we had come to the council for approval to hire a professional, U.S. Aquatics, to come in. That's what they do, is help communities like ours and larger and smaller communities get some sort of a study done for an aquatic center. Through that course, we did a survey. They came on site and did review with city staff and their own members, and had some criteria on how they analyze the aquatic center. And with the overlook 20 plus, I think, sites within our city, and came back with a recommendation from the survey, the needs and wants of what we heard through that survey from concerned citizens, to encompass, if we were to move forward with a facility, what that would look like. And they gave us that, and we've approached the council, and that was approved unanimously to the council, that project, back in February of this year, I should say. And the committee, as an update, just wanted to come back. We were asked to do some extra things as far as a feasibility study on fundraising. The committee has worked with West Central Initiative to kind of focus that study and what the next steps would be. And so our recommendation as a committee is to send an RFP to 5 institutions or folks that do that with an RFP to come back to the council to look at as far as next steps on that feasibility study and cost. And so our recommendation as a committee is to get that authority to send out those RFPs and have a chance to look at those, and then come back before the council with that information and how we go forward. So I think that's a quick little update. I don't know if Bridget or anybody else had anything you want to add to it?
Okay. So the resolution that we'll be entertaining is to authorize that with the RFP. And I know there's some people who want to speak to it, but maybe, I guess we'll get the resolution on the floor, and then we'll ask people to, allow people to speak. Does that sound good? So
I'll offer, Your
we
Honor.
offer that resolution.
Second.
And there's a second, okay. Now, if anyone would like to speak to the motion, I know, Mr. Lindig, would you like to step to the lectern, please? And
Thank you, Mayor, and council members. I'm Dave Lindig, 74 years old, and I'm a winter fitness and swimmer. So I'm just going to read what I have down here to keep it brief and not to dwell on the subject. First of all, my background is I've had 25 years of lifeguarding, teaching swimming from infants to adults, both indoors and outdoors. My first pool that I was at outdoors was close enough to the school. It was in southeast Minnesota that we actually used it during school time. It was the only aquatic facility in the small 2,000 population town. So we used it in the spring and fall because of its location. I've also coached ages, all ages, both boys and girls, in different programs for a number of years. I've been involved in 2 pool fundraisings. One at the YMCA when the YMCA pool was built, and another one, well, I was, for 3 years, I was the men's and women's Swim Tween Boosters Club president for the University of Minnesota. And during that time, the seed was developed for building the University of Minnesota Aquatic Center. I spent many, many hours and hundreds of letters. I was kind of designated the rural guy to know that a facility in the metropolitan area was needed by rural as well as by metropolitan. Now to get down to the my comment, I oppose the current plan and the narrow use potential. The use of an aquatic center, to me, an aquatic center is all-inclusive. This is not all-inclusive. So when you say an aquatic center, I get all excited when I see it in the paper, but when I see what it actually is, it kind of doesn't make me very excited at all. I oppose the site. I would favor a year-round facility and connection with like a river walk. And so that would give me my location, somewhat anyway, or in addition to the YMCA. I can mention one that I'm familiar with and used several times in Boise, Idaho, where it's a joint YMCA community facility. The regular facility is the YMCA that has all of the YMCA things, gyms, exercise areas and stuff, and then the aquatic center is community. So anybody can come into the aquatic center whether or not they are members of the Y or not. And it's a large complex. It's 50 meters by 8 lanes. It's got a separate pool for warm water for teaching swimming. And it's got kids play pool, and it's got other amendments to that facility. My first letter that I have written about this came in December of 2006, and I've written several letters as the time has gone by. Every time I see it, because I'm a rural resident, and so I do get the paper, and so whatever in the paper, usually I respond to it. I've never had anybody respond back to me except for Mr. Speedow, who acknowledged my statement that I made to him the last time. And in one of the committee members, Carolyn Gustafson, I had a conversation over the phone, and I shared with her my heartfelt feelings. As far as you mentioned funding for this project, because of the fact my objection in 2006 was in that I know people that have been involved in any part of aquatics, whether it be fitness or anything. I mean, I've identified 12 different areas or more of needs if you're going to have an aquatic facility. And that's where I'm saying the focus is very narrow, because you're not meeting many of those needs with a 2-month or 3-month facility outdoors. But I think that one of the things that you stepped on some toes by not including people that have had experience in some capacity with aquatics, whether it be fitness, rehab, special needs people, lap swimming, competitive swimming. And by the way, everybody gets on, everybody that should be for competition. I've always said that competition is about 4th down the list. However, when you're talking about fundraising, you want to attack those that are hardcore users of the facility. I think you're not going to get a lot of hardcore users because of the way the process has gone over the past. They're not happy about the way the process was, like I'm not. It's a little bit of an insult to plan a facility without people that have had any contact with that facility. Now, there are some people on there now, but there weren't in the past.
If I could just address that, just so I'm clarifying.
You can go ahead anytime, you bet.
So the last 2.5 years since the committee's been involved, so I don't know if you're talking to the 2006 committee, but since.
No, I've talked to everybody.
Since-
I've talked to all the way. Yeah.
Since we started 2.5 years ago, the WISE was the first partner that we associated with. The school district was another one. And part of our main concern was to make sure that as a committee, we worked with the stakeholders in the community. We didn't want to take away from the swimming lessons that the Y does, the rehab for the elderly clientele that they use. So they were, just to be clear, if that's what you're pointing out, they were part of this process the whole time. We didn't just put them on board last month and say, here, this is what we've done. They were invited to the meetings and they came to the meetings. Jerry Ness was a representative from the school district. Dennis Lip was a representative from the YMCA. And so those folks, just to be clear, they have been a part of this process the whole time for 2.5+ years. So just want to make sure you're right.
I haven't kept up with the community members. It's mainly the plan that I've been really concerned with, the facility itself. I know that the YMCA, now I'm just saying this from my own judgment, is not in favor of a year-round facility. So you're working with somebody that doesn't want a year-round facility, because, I don't know, I'm saying that. It's not necessarily a good mix there.
Okay.
I don't know if I have anything more to say, other than if you have any other questions, be happy to, but a true aquatic facility addresses every concern and not just a few.
Thank you, Mr. Linding, for your comments. I know there's other people here in the audience. If anyone of them would like to speak, they're more than welcome to do so. Rob, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Rob Ruckles. I reside at 320 West Maple Avenue here in Fergus Falls. I'm not on a committee. I'm not involved in the project in any way, shape, or form, but I'd like to express my support behind it. My family is a frequent user of aquatic facilities, no matter what they are. Fergus is well sorted with indoor facilities. The Y has great programs. American, free open swimming for a low cost. Indoor facilities aren't a problem. If you want to find that, it is available. They may not be in one location. You have to pick and choose and make it work, but I think it's a great opportunity that we already have. But what we're lacking is that outdoor recreation facility for our kids. My family frequently represents over into Wapaton, Breckenridge. They have 2 pools in a community a third the size of Fergus, and they're full. It's always there. We go weekly during the summer, and there's always other people from Fergus that we may not necessarily know as a personal acquaintance, but recognize the face. And so there's that demand from the people that live in our community that's already there. So as I see it, it's a great opportunity for us to build something. It may not be the exact thing that Mr. Lindig is looking for. In all respect, I would love to have an all-encompassing piece, but there's only so much money, and we need a catalyst to get started. So if it is something that we're looking at building, it can be done in phases. We start with one process. There's enough land in the our current proposal to allow for expansion into the future when budget and money allow. I really respect the idea of what's gone through with the committee already that's happened. There's been years of work, and trying to move Fergus forward is the idea with the catalyst that we have. The project is really well thought out. 1,500 recipients of the survey, focus groups, hiring an expert, and that expert has made that request of where it's at is a good idea. We already have a lot of these other pieces within it, and a community environment would allow us to move forward. I don't have a prepared statement, I don't have facts, I don't have things, it's all anecdotal, but it is something I think there is a large support in our community that we can do. And I think it's just something we need, and we need that catalyst to move us forward.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
I think it's important to just reiterate the fact that, as Councilman Arneson stated, the council did approve this project 6 months ago. So tonight what we're approving is the resolution is to move forward, just to move the process forward to get an RFP for a feasibility, a fundraising feasibility. So I think that's, please.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Just a quick statement that I really respect Mr. Lindig's concerns and opinions, and also respect that we all have our different lenses for what's best for our community. So I appreciate that dialogue, because we've had the advantage of going through a lot of facts and differing options that I know not everyone is aware of. So just a couple points that I do want to address as a social worker by my profession. I'm very interested in accessibility and affordability and making something that is available to the masses. So I do just want to address that. When we looked at this, we looked at infants to folks with disabilities to the elderly. So there is, in the concept, which is just a concept, a zero entry area, so that wheelchairs can be wheeled into that area, and that's a place for infants. The lazy river that's proposed, the volume of the intensity of the
Current.
Thank you. Can be changed so that if people want to exercise in that during certain times, you know, that can be the current that you can walk against or run against or swim against, I guess. And the plan right now does call for 4 lanes of a 25-meter pool, which could be used for some swimming lessons at certain times of the day. So the concept is just a concept, but we do want to make it as inclusive as possible for all community members of Fergus. And just the other quick point that I know I talked about last time was the cost factor. And I believe that I said last time an indoor facility costs about 4 times as much to build and 9 times as much to operate. And the return on that is only 3 times as much as an outdoor facility. So there would be just a lot of, you know, you'd have to really subsidize for an indoor. And we did talk about an indoor, but they, you know, to Mr. Lindig's point, there is not a lot of standalone indoor facilities. They are partnered with YMCA's or community centers to bolster that revenue. So thank you. I appreciate the dialogue and the time tonight.
Thank you, Bridget.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
I think we already have a resolution, so we'll vote on it shortly. If we have any last comments, Darren, Jim?
Darren was first. No, I think it's time to move forward. Mr. Rogholt kind of said it. We as a community need to move this along.
Thank you, Darren. Jim?
I'm also on the CVB board, and I know this was brought up
and we would love, as a CVB board, to have 8 lanes indoor. It put a lot of heads on beds, but we looked at the survey and what the survey said and what people can afford and the use of it and everything, and we wholeheartedly support the going ahead with the RFP and going with the outdoor pool.
One last comment. I mean, I think the other thing was that at the committee of the whole, this was approved, and obviously it's so. And we've had 2 or 3 emails come in today saying that the city council was kind of against this, and that's obviously not a true statement. It was a unanimous vote that at the committee of the whole to put it on the consent agenda, and for this to pass without obviously probably 25-30 minutes of dialogue about it. So just so people know that and we respect obviously somebody has a different opinion, as Bridget said, they see it through different lenses. So and I think the only other thing I would add is that part of obviously this RFP and looking at it is that the funding for the aquatic facility is proposed to be grouped with other community projects in a 2020 voter approval extension of the city sales tax and private funding, with the goal of starting construction in 2021. And I think the other piece that I would say that city staff need to kind of work on in cognizant of or conjunction with this is those other pieces, so that we don't get one horse to the finishing line and then the other ones are still in the stable. So I think to Andrew and his team, we need to start looking at those other things too and putting some dollars together on those.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ron, then we're going to vote. Go ahead.
I have approved and stood for wanting to have an aquatic facility in Fergus from the very beginning, and put out the first survey, which was above all the other projects in Fergus, including the Kirkbride. It was ahead that the citizens wanted an aquatic facility. And and Bridget knows this and others, that my only concern has been that we're big enough, and I would love to see it be a year-round, or the option of having an outdoor opening to it and then build it so that it could be, if we partnered or collaborated with somebody in the future, like the Y, or if the school district would come to the table on it, then we could have an indoor facility with a true regional 8-lane facility, as well as the other stuff outdoor. And I think that would be for the future Fergus, the ideal. Obviously, you can't always have the ideal. So I just wanted to say that I agree totally with Anthony's assessment. I brought it up at the work session that this will likely become something that has to be brought as a comprehensive piece if we look at funding some of this through our revision or ongoing sales tax. And I appreciated those people who wrote letters, Nikki, Jesse, and Dave, others. I really appreciate community engagement in this. It needs to be a uniter and not a divider. And I just don't want to see anyone left out. So that's been my concern all along. And one final caveat, we have this new economic initiative. It's kicked off by the mayor. And I will say one thing about the survey that I think, and U.S. Aquatics has done a good job, I think, overall, but I don't believe that there was a full business financial analysis of the siting of the survey. That is, the water park was sited at a certain facility, but I don't believe that it was truly a full financial look. And I would love to have some of the people, the business people on this new group, look at the siting and the possibilities of generating business that could offset some of the costs if we were to plan it, so we could eventually perhaps have an indoor as well. So I just don't want to narrow it down so tight that it's already over, but I'm in favor of the aquatics facility. Just want to make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. With that, we'll call for a vote. Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Ruper.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Arneson.
You betcha.
Speedo.
Yeah.
Hicks.
So you betcha bet. Yes.
Yes.
Bradley.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Thank you. Under ordinances and resolutions, First item is a first reading ordinance 71, 7th series, and that is relating to the annexation of land from Fergus Falls Township. And we just need someone to introduce that this evening, unless there's any discussion from the council, but we will just need someone to introduce that.
I'll introduce that.
Thank you, Rod. There's no discussion. Second item is a resolution approving agreement with Bolton and Mank for downtown riverfront master plan. City engineer Brian Ybarra.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, again. Before you is a memo in regards to the downtown riverfront master plan. That project consists of the riverfront amphitheater improvements along with the river balcony and riverbank enhancements. If you please refer to that on the screen, that was, showing the project limits, excuse me. So the exhibit was included in the RFQ, which defining the project limits from Union to Court, and then encompassing from the riverbank forward. So, yes, try that one, please. That'll work. So as requested, city staff procured a professional services agreement for the above project. Due to the variables and the additional considerations once we start going down this, it's starting to determine that the most appropriate course of action moving forward would to complete the design development phase prior to entering into final design. Because of this, I solicited local consultants for a request for qualifications. 4 consultants submitted their request for qualifications. Each consultant team's RFQ was individually scored by a 9-member selection committee according to the criteria set forth. Bolton & Mink was the most qualified firm chosen by the selection committee. Then last Monday, the project management team met with representatives from Bolton & Mink to discuss the design development work scope, public input expectations, and anticipated deliverable schedule that was also outlined in the RFQ. At the same meeting, though, it was also stressed that public input from stakeholder groups, general public, downtown businesses, all would be very crucial to the success of this project moving forward. With these aspects in Stein, Bolton and Mink prepared a work scope and an estimated fee schedule that's not included in your packet. However, I have included their letter that discusses some of the deliverables and anticipated work tasks and everything and anticipated with this project. If accepted by this council, the next step would be actually start hitting the ground running and start developing a work plan with specific tasks to engage the public with stakeholders and downtown businesses. Before you, there's 2 slides right here. These are renderings that were included in Bolton and Mink's RFQ. This right here is a conceptual one of the amphitheater, please note, and some of the river walk. Notice what we anticipate with the east parking lot just showing up to where the cars are parked. And then if you please move to the next one. This also is looking from Bird's Eye to the northeast, Union Avenue. This is just a rendering of what could be a combination of a boardwalk and or marketplace, farmer's market, get more multiple general uses out of this particular facility. So please note, this is why we're going down the design development phase to bring in a more holistic and approach to refining the project to final design. So at this time, and the representative from Bolton and Mink here is here too as well, Barry Gleckie, to answer any questions with his understanding of the project. So at this time, I'm requesting to accept Bolton Mink's professional service proposal for design and development in the amount of $105,475. This consultant fee will be funded through future project allocations and in partnership with a significant pledge from a local trust fund for naming rights.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Rod.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Second. Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Sorry. So is this including the bridge kind of at Ottatel Power to River End in this, or?
No, that
So-
first sheet we had right there is basically up to the courthouse, so the east side of the amphitheater, moving forward. If we, with the bridge and everything to incorporate that, that would be under a separate contract, however, if the LCC mark grants.
So
project
if we don't get this grant, I mean, then these things will be excluded, or, I mean.
No, we would take in consideration that design to move forward east of the amphitheater to come to Cascade for that bridge.
Yeah.
It's not a component of this project, but we're thinking forward to see how that could be incorporated into it.
And then, I mean, I know it's kind of good, but why do we need to, I mean, this is another study, and we're already accused of having too many studies, and this is like $105,000 on top of the 200 and something that we just spent on the master plan.
Well, this would not be classified as a study, but an enhancement to get to final design.
Yeah.
We got our project work scope, here's what we want, here's the scope limits. What do we want to incorporate to get to that final design?
Right.
We clearly were not there to enter into a final design because all the components, ornamental fencing, lighting, what have you. I couldn't scope it properly without getting what we call scope creep if we entered right into that phase.
And how long do we anticipate this would take?
On this schedule, it's pretty aggressive, and that's why I presented to you, but we're anticipating a deliverable, 90%, and we can give you that in January, or excuse me, around December, in this coming December. If approved, we would move to the next step, which would be final design, because a portion of this design development phase is going to basically redefine the final design. It'll encompass a lot of that final design work. But if we do this, accept it in December, and if we enter into final design winter, we'd look to advertise, and early construction maybe spring of 2019.
Any other questions or comments?
Could this be included in our 2020 projects that we look to go to the state for bonding funds for?
For the overall project cost?
I mean, no, for the construction piece of it.
I mean, I think that there's been some sources of funding identified.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how we're gonna fund it in total.
I mean, there's been some community groups that have stepped up and said they want to play a part.
Yeah, but how much, I mean, have we got an anticipation of what it's gonna cost to construct?
I've run some preliminary numbers, but I'm still working on those right now. But I had
Some of
to
that will
get
be
this-
contingent upon the actual final design that's
Yeah.
come up with too, right? So we won't know that until we go through.
Absolutely.
We actually have a firm
Absolutely.
project.
Until
and
you go
this is
through that
what we're-
design development and everything, you're gonna need associated probable costs.
Sure.
And everything to help steer you in what direction is with your budgetary needs in mind.
Sure. Any other questions? Now we'll go. Roll call.
Fish.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hoover.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Armstead.
Yes.
Steele.
Yes.
Hicks.
No,
Pepper.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. The next item is a resolution approving property tax abatement agreement for Fergus Care Center LLC located at 1010 Maryland Lane. Amy Baldwin.
Mayor, council members, as was reviewed at the June 18th city council meeting, the city of Fergus Falls and Ottertail County have received a request for property tax abatement to offset a portion of expenses related to the renovation and reoccupation of the facility at 1010 Maryland Lane, currently owned by Catholic Charities. The applicant is Fergus Care Center LLC, or Adventure Properties, out of St. Cloud. And the anticipated tenant of the building would be the State of Minnesota Department of Human Services for their addiction recovery services that have been previously located in an Ottertail County-owned building at 1174 Western Avenue. The reoccupation of this building would provide a number of benefits for the community, including the redevelopment and renewal of a currently vacant facility in Fergus Falls that has a limited reuse potential. Probably most importantly, providing local access to the services that the Community Addiction Recovery Enterprises offers in addiction issues for area folks. Additionally, providing employment opportunity and increasing the tax base by making this property remain taxable. It had been tax exempt when Catholic Charities was operating within the facility. To assist with an analysis of the appropriate amount of assistance for the developer, the city and the county engaged Ellers, a public finance advisor. And the expenses related to the work conducted by Ellers, as well as the preparation of the development agreement, have been funded by the applicant themselves. Ellers conducted a review of the financials provided by the developer, including anticipated revenues, expenditures, and other development costs, and ensured that they were within appropriate industry standards. Based on the analysis, there is a recommendation for 6 years of abatement, not to exceed $15,000 per year for the city's portion of the abatement, to be provided for a total of $90,000 over the 6 years. As you may recall, the initial request was for a larger amount than that, but based on the analysis, it was pared down to the 6 years at $15,000. There's been an agreement drafted that was included in your packet related to this assistance. The Otter Tail County Board of Commissioners reviewed this same form of the agreement that contemplated the 6 years of abatement at its July 10th meeting and did unanimously approve moving forward with that agreement. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on this proposal, as well. There's representatives from Inventure here this evening.
Thank you, Amy. Anthony?
I got a question. I wonder why is it that the city would be doing 15,000 annually and the county is only doing 10? And I think as the county is bigger than the city, I would like to see that reversed.
Mayor, Councilmember Hicks, that is related to the current amount, proportionate amount of the taxes paid. So based on the tax bill, they do pay more to the city than to the county.
Can we equalize it? Can we go to 10,000?
We, Mayor, council members, we could, if we'd go to a longer term of abatement then to get to the total amount.
Yeah, I don't know, it just seems, I don't know, I look at the numbers and, I mean, I appreciate what they're doing, but I still deem this as being a private business that we're helping, so I will be voting against it.
Any other questions or comments? We will need a, let's get a resolution on the table.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin. Now, is there any further discussion, comments? Anyone in the audience have any comments? Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Armstrong.
Yes.
Steele.
No.
Hicks.
No.
Everett.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Thank you, Amy. Next item is a resolution approving a conditional use permit to allow a woodworking business in an R1 zone located at 315 North Concord Street, as requested by Michael Dunning. Jason.
Mayor, council, a request was made to the Planning Commission by Michael Dunning for a conditional use permit to allow a custom woodworking business to be located in his detached garage where he will make, display, and sell his products. By conditional use permit, startup businesses are allowed by city ordinance within residential neighborhoods. This ordinance allows the owner who occupies the residence as their homestead property to use 1/3 of their business, or 1/3 of their home for their business, where they will make products of their own making to sell. They are also allowed a professional nameplate identifying the business on the dwelling. That is to be 2 square feet or less. It should be placed in the front yard and it may be illuminated. For this request, a public hearing was held on July 9th, 2018. During the public hearing, only support was heard from those who spoke, and the Planning Commission voted unanimously to pass the conditional use permit in an R1 zone. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Is there any questions? Let's get a someone offer their resolution?
Yeah, offer, yeah.
Thank you, Rod. Brent?
No. I'll second it.
No, I had a question.
Okay, so we have a resolution and a second, now we can discuss. Brent, go ahead.
Now, they may have had nobody oppose it. I went out and spoke with the neighbors, and the neighbors that I was able to speak to who were directly adjacent are opposed to this, because I personally run a wood shop out of my little place outside of town. When I do woodworking, planers are extremely loud. This guy doesn't, at all hours of the day. And I just don't think this particular instance people wanting to put their kids to sleep at night, people want to have gatherings in their backyard, want to hear planers going at all hours of the day. And I just don't think this kind of a business opportunity is suitable for our neighborhood. And that's why I'm going to have to be voting no.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett. Other, Amy?
Mayor, council members, just to note, the Planning Commission did make a recommendation to have limitation of hours of operation, which is allowed within the conditional use permit process. And if the council would want to consider other hours, that would certainly be an appropriate condition to place within this permit. That is the role of a conditional use permit. Theirs were from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
8 to 10. Yes, Rod?
Yeah, I had spoken to the Planning Commission about this because I had a number of, questions. I encourage any council members to do that with it because they considered a lot of aspects, and I believe that what's been said is a complete look at, it's a positive thing. I think it's hard to start new businesses in Fergus as it is. We should be encouraging it, and there can be some additional controls put on with the conditional use. So I don't see any real problem with it, and I don't think, so I'll be voting in favor of it.
Did the Planning Commission, I assume, they had a discussion on the hours from 8 to 10? I mean, that was a
Yes, they did. That's what their recommendation is. They would approve it with the hours from 8 to 10, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night.
I do note that obviously in the staff memo, it does say that staff has received complaints prior to the CUP application from neighbors regarding noise of woodworking equipment, and obviously the burning of scrap wood and smell. But I wonder if the limitation on hours is, 10 o'clock at night is quite late to be, out there kind of planing wood and whatever. So I'm fine with 8 o'clock in the morning, but I think we should, if we're going to do it, we should limit that you can't go banging nails and
8 o'clock at night?
I would say 8 till 8 should be long enough. That's
Your Honor, I got a question.
Scott?
Brian, when construction in town, what's the hour? Do we have hours set on that?
Yeah, generally 7 a.m., 7 p.m.,
Yeah.
and then you get authorization if they want to work a Saturday or so, we just get heads up on that too, for
That's
the
my
right
other,
reason.
is it this 7 days a week or is it, no, Saturdays and Sundays? That's the other question I had.
That's 7 days a week,
Year-round,
year-round.
too, I understand. Okay.
Darren, you live there. What do you think?
I don't hear the planer, but I wouldn't want to be living next door to it from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., nor would I want to listen to it 7 days a week.
So, what do we?
I agree with Anthony on the 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, so, Rod, are you amenable to amending the
Yeah,
resolution?
right.
8 to 8?
Yeah.
And
I'll
Brent,
second it.
you
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay, any other restrictions the council wants to consider?
Well, weekends maybe, or we got to do something about 7 days. I mean, people outside listening to this for 7 days, 365, no.
Is that something considered by the planning commission? Whether there should be restriction on?
I'm just going to mention, Your Honor, members, that the applicant indicated to the Planning Commission he has a full-time job outside of this, so he works during the week, full-time job, and primarily does this activity in the evenings and on the weekends. So if you were to limit the weekends, I think it would be difficult for him to be able to comply with the conditional use permit.
And we also probably,
Pardon?
I don't know I don't know the financial situation that he's in either, but maybe somehow along the way here, you could be looking at some kind of additional location, and maybe he can expand his business or move into a more suitable location at some point. I'm not saying tomorrow, but, okay.
Okay, so we have an amended resolution in a second.
For clarification, we can come back and change that conditional use permit at any time, is that true?
If you get complaints.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. If there's complaints about it, we can change it then, yeah. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Fish.
No.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
Thompson.
No.
Armisen.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
yes.
Packer.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, guys.
Next item on the agenda is a resolution accepting entering into a non-binding letter of intent of Fergus Falls Gymnastics Incorporated on building number 3 at the Regional Treatment Center. I'll call on Andrew Bremseth, our city administrator.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Members of the council, I'm not sure if there's any members of the Gymnastics Association here to speak to this tonight. I incorrectly assumed on Wednesday that there were not, so I don't see anybody wanting to speak to this. So there's not much to add from the discussion that we had on Wednesday. The Gymnastics Academy is expressing interest in building number 3, which is the gymnasium at the Kirkbride campus. You can see it there on the map. It is part of the Phase 2 proposed deconstruction project. They're hoping that this letter of intent serves as their expressed interest, and they want to begin their due diligence and financial feasibility from this point on. They're asking for 90 days from the time that we approve this letter of intent, so that would be today. And in that time, they would identify costs. They would bring an architect on board and look at what their feasibility or their fundraising capabilities would be to see if it's feasible for them. I failed to mention on Wednesday that the development group from East and West Detached, they sent us a letter indicating that they support the city's initiative on Phase 2 and do not want to see that building as a standalone building. They want that back area cleaned up for their development of East and West Detached and to make things look tidy. One thing to note, if you're going to remove Building 25 and leave Building 3 standing, they do share a wall, and we would have to be very careful with how we would proceed, not only during the deconstruction process, but also with using state funds. There's a very fine line as to what state funds are eligible for, and if the cost of repairing that wall could be seen as impacting the development, which in this case I don't think that you could argue against that, we would not be eligible to spend state dollars in doing such. So I caution you in that regard, but this is what's before us today, and the council needs to decide if they want to enter into this non-binding letter of intent. I did hear from the school district. I know there's been a lot of different rumors flying around about whether or not they're getting kicked out of their space at the school, and I think that it's appropriate to just indicate that they're not. They're looking for a standalone facility, but it's not because the school district is asking them to leave the space that they currently have. So if there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Otherwise, tonight they're looking to have the council approve a non-binding letter of intent so they can begin their due diligence over the next 90 days.
Brent.
Is there any way, since we're not allowed to use that money, that we let them know that any repairs or anything that has to be done there, they're gonna have to figure into their budget and not ours?
Your Honor, Councilmember Thompson, that's what the conversation would be over the next 90 days. It would be defining the parameters and working towards a development agreement and a purchase agreement. And we would have to hammer those details out, but I would think the position of the city would be we do not want to do anything that would jeopardize those funds or spend money that would not be authorized to be reimbursed by those funds.
Rod?
We need something to offer this on.
Yeah, let's
I
get
just
a
like to offer
resolution.
it, then I like to make a comment.
Okay, we have a resolution, we have a second. For sake of discussion, thank you, Tom. Go ahead, Rod.
Just to comment that the number of people that use this in the city is quite large, and as I understand this is allowing them to explore the possibilities, and if we come up with something that our engineer or whatever says doesn't fit, we have a chance to say it's not going to work. But I don't see why we would limit a group, a community group, from exploring something that's obviously a very positive part of this community, and they need a building right now. So I'm going to be voting in favor because I believe it's part of the exploration process.
Thank you, Rod.
I do have a comment with regards to the school side of things, that they know they're not being forced out, or there's other users there, so they end up having to tear down 2 or 3 times a season and moving that equipment and tearing down an equipment, and that's hard on that equipment, very hard on that equipment, which is very expensive equipment, by the way. I'm a little too close to this, so I'll be abstaining on this vote. So.
I just had a point of clarification or question. So we got a letter of support from West Detached, East Detached about proceeding with phase two, my understanding would be that they submitted a letter of intent knowing that phase two maybe wouldn't happen if we didn't get state dollars. So this isn't like impeding them from doing their project. This wasn't contingent on them doing their project. That was just their opinion, us on phase two, correct?
Exactly. For what it's worth, it would not impede their project. It was just they wanted to have their opinion noted by the city council.
Okay, thank you.
Just out of interest, is there a party wall kind of to the whatever you want to call it, the south? You know, butting up to kind of like effectively building 1 and 26, or is that a void?
Your Honor, Councilmember Hicks, that's a void. There's a green space there currently today. Well, it could be paved, but there's a gap there between those buildings.
So it would just be the one wall. So if we made it clear to them, as Councilmember Thompson said, that any renovation of that wall or reconstruction of that wall, it would be, you know, to their cost.
I think the other thing to look at too is they're looking at 1.5 acres of parking. Is that I think was in the letter also? So that's quite a chunk of property to be given up to. But I'm going to vote for it to give them a chance to look at this. I think everybody should have an opportunity, but I've talked to a couple of them on there and they know what's ahead of them. So I think we should give them the opportunity. So.
Thank you, Scott.
I think as long as it's clear that 90 days is 90 days,
Right.
and there is no extension.
Right.
I'm not prepared to not proceed with demolition of phase two. You know, just to save one building. When you look at the state that some of the buildings are in.
All right. We good? Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Ruper.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Ernest.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Everett.
Abstain.
That resolution is approved. Item number 6 is a resolution authorizing staff to prepare an RFP for Building 29, which is the memorial building on the Regional Treatment Center campus. And did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just real briefly, Your Honor, members, we've received 2 letters of intent for Building 29, which is the small building up there right off of West Attached. One of them was several months ago, and we asked that party to wait as we worked with the East and West Attached developer to define a footprint. Originally, we thought that building would be encompassed by the parcel of land sold with West Attached. We have now seen a preliminary plat in the works that does not encompass that building. And in the meantime, we've also received another letter of intent. I've heard from other interested parties that want to express their interest in that building but have not done so at this time. And so the thought is, why don't we initiate a RFP process that would allow any and all interested parties to submit what their proposal would be, and then as a city, we could determine what the most appropriate and best use is for that building. If the council does not want to follow a formal RFP process, we could consider the ones we've received in the order in which they've been received, or we could consider the ones we have received side by side and bring those forward at the next city council meeting to determine which party we ultimately want to begin negotiating with.
Any thoughts there?
Andrew, just a little clarification. There was an LOI sent in earlier by somebody, or?
Yes, that's correct. It would have been shortly after we received the letter of intent for the East and West Development Group. And the conversation at the time was to wait and see how that bigger development would have to play out, and as to not impact it with a smaller single standalone development like Building 29. They were patient enough to understand what that process would entail. We certainly would be willing and glad to work with that individual if that's the direction we want to go. But like I mentioned, more recently we received a second letter of intent, so now we have interest from multiple parties with multiple different uses. And the council has options before it, and if they want to maximize their ability to see what other options are out there, the RFP process would be the way to do that.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Can I get a clarification? This is for Andrew. You know, we've heard a lot about the development group that's coming in on East and West Detached in general. I may have missed a meeting, but I don't think I've heard specifics yet on their development, and yet we're referencing them in terms of their will and what they should do and what they might do. I just want to know when we will know What are the specifics of this group and what they're going to do regarding TIF and other things, the type of housing that's going in there?
As those details come or continue to be worked on, we'll bring that forward. I raised the issue on the last item just simply as an FYI, and I mentioned that. And in regards to this item, everything was fluid, and I'm telling you why we've asked this letter of intent to wait. We continue to work with the development group, the proposed development group, and things are moving forward in the right direction. You guys have heard all of the details that we've presented up till now. You have not missed a meeting, and we continue to work. Right now, they're working on putting a plat together, which should be the next step before the city council, and that's when we would entertain that purchase agreement again. We would look for more specifics and present those at that time.
Would that be at the planning commission first and then here, or does it come here first?
Mayor, Councilmember Speedall, certainly the planning commission would review the plat through our traditional process, preliminary plat.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Your Honor?
Yes, Jim.
I would offer a resolution authorizing staff to prepare an RFP.
RFP process, okay, got it.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 That resolution is approved. Tonight, there are claims in the amount of $2,788,772.05. And if there's any questions, I would ask them to be directed to Bill Sommer. If not, I'll entertain a resolution.
I'll offer it.
For those bills. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Rod, for the second. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. There are no board, committee, or department reports or reports from staff and administrative officers. There is no old business. Under new business, just one item, and that is a brief update from Greater Fergus Falls. If you recall, 2 weeks ago, we voted to give the authority to appoint a new 501c3. We have done that. I will let the council know who the charter members of that organization are. They are Rebecca Peterson from West Central Initiative, Steve Roofer from Pemberton Law, Jennifer Smethstead from Ottertail Power, Thad Olson from Bremer Bank, Clara Beck from the Caddis Galleries, Gary Spees from Service Food, Gary Brimhall from M State, Brent Nelson from Nelson Auto, Christy Hastings from Pemberton Law, and Andrew Yagi from Glindy Nelson Funeral Home. That group was incorporated late last week. They had their first meeting on Friday. One of the action items taken was for that group to enter into an agreement with Bruce Thome. And Bruce reached out to me. One of the first things he said is he wanted transparency, he wanted openness, and he wanted good communication with the council. And so we talked, and he said, well, let's have Bruce come in front of the council, introduce himself to the council, reintroduce himself to the community. And so with that, I'd like to call on Bruce Thome.
Come prepared, but I don't know what you want to hear, so let's just kind of sit this down here for a little bit. I am Bruce Thome. I've been in this council chambers before, but it was 30, 40 years ago. I only know a couple of you people here, and you probably won't get a PowerPoint presentation out of me. I don't do that real well. Economic development, as you people know, you've been involved in it. I was the first director of economic development the city of Fergus Falls ever had. I was also the third economic development director Fergus Falls ever had. And so I do know something about the process that we have to go through. First of all, I want to thank you all. You gave a unanimous vote last week, or 2 weeks ago, to moving ahead and forming this new corporation. It'll be a 501c3, so people can make donations to it. I don't know what you want to know. I'm just going to tell you this much. We had the Journal and the media at our first meeting, and they'll be invited to every meeting. You people will receive minutes. That's the way I am. I believe in 100% transparency, and that's the way we're going to go forward together. I need the city council and I need them to support and to help. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. I'll give you the 30-second tour of economic development. I wasn't going to do this, but you guys talked me into it. These are the 8 things that you need to do if you're going to have economic development in this town. You need to have a goal. Well, we're working on getting a goal. We're going to have a goal, but this is what you need. And I'm not picking these in any order. Labor. We got to know what labor we have. Is it to expand the existing forces that we have? Can we bring labor in from other communities? What does it take to have labor available? We got to know that. If we don't have that, we have nothing. Staff. We got to have a staff. We got to have people to do the job. If we have people to do the job and hold them responsible, we aren't big on studies. Fergus Falls community. We're going to have a meeting in the first part of August of the community, because I can't do economic development if we got townspeople out there saying, Fergus is dead, it's got too many empty buildings, don't come, because what happens is we're going to bring in a prospect, and he's going to go on, he won't even tell us, he'll say to us, I'll be in town Monday morning at 9 a.m. He probably comes in Sunday night, goes to the local restaurants, talks to the people. By Monday morning, he's decided, I'm already leaving this town. This is a deadbeat town. So we got to have the community. I need people positive. No is not in my vocabulary. I'm sorry, I took it out of my dictionary. No is not possible. A couple other things we need a loan pool money. That is, with Bremer, is helping us put this thing together right. So we'll have a loan pool, we'll have money to help these businesses when we get them on the way. We need community leadership. That was shown to me, you know, this isn't something I have a long desire to do. I've done this thing many, many times, but it is something, and we need community leadership. That membership list, the directors, first board of directors that the mayor just said, shows me that the community people involved, volunteers, are willing and ready to go to work with me to make this thing happen. Here you, the city council. They are a key member of this project. Without the city council, I don't even want to be around here. Because the city council is the voice of the people. People are going to ask you questions. You need to know the answers. And I'm here to give you 100% transparency. And I appreciate your vote 2 weeks ago. And the last thing we need is buildings. Well, we know Fergus has buildings. So part of the things we've got done, but I didn't have this 30, 40 years ago. We didn't have buildings. We now have buildings. So those are the kinds of things. But I need all of these things together to put them in my little toolbox here. That's what I carry. I carry this in a little toolbox. And we're working right now to come up with, you know, our name, 2020, whatever it's going to be, a slogan of this and that. I'll just tell you this story. This is a button from dated 7/9/84. That's the day we decided to have 500 jobs in 500 days in Fergus Falls. Now the problem is, I stood before the city council on that day just like I stand before you. And the councilmen were debating the issue, and they said, that's a lot of jobs in 500 days. Someone said, well, maybe we should make it 200. Maybe we should make it 300. Well, I don't know what to do, and I finally stood up and said, gentlemen, the button's already printed. It's 500 jobs in 500 days. Now, we didn't reach 500 jobs in 500 days, but we did get 325. And so it's a great way to start this thing. We'll have a new button. And I will hope that every councilman here will wear the buttons, because they're going to be the thing to keep things going. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. It's only the start of this thing, but I believe the first week and a half of this, we've made as much progress as we can make. We're going to continue to meet with people. We're going to have this community meeting, and then we're going to take off running. I got to have some of these things done first, though. We've got to have you people, we gotta have the loan pool, we gotta have the labor, we gotta have the buildings. We need this stuff before we go out and really hit the road running. But don't tell me no. Any questions of you? I'm glad to be here. Yes, sir.
I just have a comment. Appreciate you taking the time. You got many other things you could have been doing instead of helping us here in this community, and I really appreciate your efforts here.
Well, if we're gonna give him hell, Harry. I just want to say that I need all your support. The mayor has been great. He's met with me many times. I don't know why I took this job on, except I love Fergus Falls. I lived here for over 40 years. I know what's going on, and we're going to try our best, but it's going to take everyone involved. If this was so damn easy, I wouldn't have to be here tonight. I know it's tough, economic development. I do have a few ways, though, of figuring out and doing, and we'll put them to good use, and let's hope it works. And we're going to keep you informed. We're not going to keep you informed with what the minutes are of our meetings. I'm here to come to visit you. I'll be here probably more than you want, because I think it's important that you people know. And the reason I learned that was that 30, 40 years ago, I had 2, 3 council people that were on my side, and we'd go over to the VFW and have a little barley pop at the end of the meeting, and Mayor Kelly Ferber would say, well, this or that, this, that, this. Well, pretty soon, after about 3 months, the other 4, 5, 6 councilmen would say, what's going on? We don't hear a thing about it. And Kelly said, well, you've got to come over to the VFW. Well, some people didn't really take to that. So I learned my lesson back then. You people are going to know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, it's your fault, because I'm here to give it to you. Any other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Fish, the one I do know.
The one comment I have is that Bruce is always going to be looking to do the best for us. You're not always going to like his answers.
Well, we got things that have to get done. I'm going to be working tomorrow with Andrew. We've got an issue with the mill. The mayor took me over there the first time I met him, and we walked over to the mill, and he said, I need this done, I need this done. They said, well, it'll probably take you a few meetings. Well, it took a meeting and a half. The mill's going to be done. Ralph is involved in this thing. And we got a great guy in Mr. Bertram who can do an awful lot for this town. So we got to make sure that he's taken care of too. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I won't go through. I'll save the rest of my bag of tricks for another time. Thank
Bruce,
you.
just want to thank you for coming and welcome on board. And if you need anything, you have to ask, which I don't think is going to be.
And we aren't afraid to ask.
I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Thank you very much.
Bruce.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Thank you. Well, I did leave one name off the list. Kyle Richards from the Lake Region Healthcare is the 11th member of that board, and I didn't have him written down. So thank you to that group. Really look forward to that group working with us here at City Hall. The things that we're doing, the community development, the engineering department, all of us. It's going to take all of us to get this done, and so I really look forward to the efforts, and I think that Fergus Falls is going to be better off for it. Anthony, do you have a comment?
It's called Greater Fergus Falls, just for everybody's kind of benefit.
And at that first meeting, they did come up with the slogan. Bruce mentioned the Project 500, and they talked about 2020, 20 new or expanded businesses in Fergus Falls by the year 2020. That's the goal. That's the promise.
Can I add something? So I know a lot of those names, but don't have their contact info. And if we do get calls from citizens, can we get that out to us as council members so we can point them in the right direction? If we have questions that we can't answer, we can appoint them to that group.
Certainly.
Is that fair?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Rod?
I think it's a great initiative, and I just wanted to, I know many of the names there I recognize, and just want to make sure that many small business owners throughout Fergus Falls are also, that they be represented in that voice.
Absolutely, and just to clarify, that's the initial, there's 2 incorporators, and there was 11 initial members in the bylaws. that group then will expand themselves to the appropriate number. And I'm gonna guess they're gonna be somewhere around 20. So they'll take a look and say, who's not represented on this board, who else do we need to get in the room to make this happen, and then they'll fill that board out, so thank you
Great
for
work.
that. The one announcement I wanted to make, July 31st through August 14th is filing openings for city council seats, and there are 4 seats open this election cycle. So Lynn Olson is always willing and very capable of answering any questions that anybody has. But if you stop into City Hall, anyone's interested in running for city council, filing period is July 31st through August 14th. August 14th is also the primary date this year. So if there's nothing else to come before the council, we're adjourned.
Meeting for July 12th, 2018 to order. First item on the agenda is as follows: approval of the meeting minutes from our June 4th, 2018 meeting.
Yep.
So move, or second.
Thanks, Rod, and thanks, Scott. Any other questions or discussions on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Second item on the agenda is the LCCMR funding grant update. Amy will kick that off.
President, Commissioners, just included for your information was a memo that Ryan Miller from our staff put together relating to the updated legislation for LCCMR and the presentation that staff and others made to the commission in early June related to the dairy property and that funding source. So I think that update of the legislative action has already been provided to the city council, but just wanted to have that to see in case there was any questions on the updated language in the legislation of the commissioners.
Any questions on that update, or are we good? Hearing none, we'll then move to the item number 3 on the agenda, adjournment to a closed meeting to discuss real estate negotiations regarding the dairy property pursuant to Minnesota State Section 13D, Period 5, subsection 3C. The Port Authority may reconvene to an open session for consideration of purchase agreement for the dairy property.
No, that's why you went into closed session.
Yeah,
We're just gonna
but
authorize
my resolution would be to authorize Steve Erickson as a representative of the task force to go back with a counter offer to Steve Cheney on the purchase of the dairy property.
Do we want to give, you will have then coming back?
Direction than what I heard here.
We've already heard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you state the amount?
No, but I said, do I have to state the amount? Because it's, obviously it was a counter offer. And
We were gonna have another meeting
Don't-
if we get
Yep.
the
yep.
final.
You're authorizing Steve Erickson to make
A counter offer.
counter offer and report back to the Port Authority. The Port Authority is intending on having a meeting next week, and should know by that time where it stands, and with the purchase agreement, and whether a counter offer is acceptable.
I second. You have a second. Any other discussion or questions on this before we vote? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay,
Who opposed?
Brent. Motion carries.
Good thing I didn't oppose. Well, I still would have carried.
Thanks, Scott.
And the last thing we have, any late business to come before us?
Commissioners,
I won't be here, so I don't care.
I sent out, Jill Hansen from Port Authority staff sent out a note last week regarding scheduling of the work session that had been discussed, and in working with President Arneson on dates, we came to the 23rd or 24th, next Monday or Tuesday at 4 p.m. In both instances, we would be concluded by 5:30. And so we would be looking, I have now Darren, Rod, Tom, Justin as being available for both. You're not going to be here? Did I hear?
I'll be here.
You will. Either
On either day?
either day.
Yeah.
Okay. And Brent, either day, the 23rd,
Either day.
24th? Okay. Anthony, your updated availability?
I can go from 4 o'clock to 4:45
On the 23rd
on the 23rd.
and not the 24th?
I can do the 24th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone is available the 24th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we will be setting a Port Authority work session, and which would be a regular meeting as well for the 24th at 4 p.m.
We'll be done by 5:30?
We will be done by 5:30 because that is the
For sure.
Otter County Sheriff's debate.
That's in here?
That's in here. We may meet at the, depending what time they have to set up, I will confirm location for the Port Authority meeting.
If it's Monday, could we meet offsite at Del Morel Golf Course?
No. It's been a long day. Okay.
That's
All
at
right, so we will be calling that
Longest
meeting,
drive
and that is to talk about other Port Authorities, the abilities and resources of the Port Authority, reviewing other compositions of membership and other research that we'll present to the commissioners.
Can I ask a question? Will Mr. Thome be invited at some point, because the last presentation they had at the Port Authority would be interesting to discuss sometime how that figures in, maybe not this meeting, but the future, you know?
Certainly.
I'd like to hear more how that works. And
I'm meeting with him tomorrow as well, so I can get a preliminary to talk about on the 24th.
Can we
Thank
get
you.
an update on inquiries on the land we own
Sure.
that's for sale?
Yep.
I still think we need to.
That listing arrangement does expire in September.
Any
would
other,
like more funds.
any other thing to come before us tonight?
Bill would like more funds.
Do you support if they want to sponsor the race? Or Soda 100?
the farmland that we talked about last time.
That's done. That's a good deal. That's all they did. He took hay off it now. He bailed it. I think he's bailing tomorrow, and he'll do another one for it. So that's all good. Everything's paid. It's all right, Amy?
Correct, yeah.
It's all paid up. Everything's to the land. There was a discrepancy. They got that figured out. And so it's all,
All right.
When is that, Scott?
13th, 14th, and 15th.
September.
The last 2 weeks, we've averaged 130 cars at the racetrack, and we're anticipating 450 to 500 each day at the races. Wow. So it's we got a time restraint thing we should be talking about. I'm not restraint, but we got to talk about letting people know, because we went till midnight because we had a power outage. So it was midnight on Friday night, and it's going to be.
Well, we should make sure that there's some kind of concerted effort by all the interested parties. I've talked with Lisa Workman and Jean Bowman a little bit about just making sure that businesses know what's coming. I
Sure.
should stop talking.
Yeah, no, I can just add to that. President Arneson, Commissioner Roofer, to that point, the Chamber, CVB, and the EIC, because we'd already obligated, is doing a support to that to make sure there's broad community recognition of the event, that it's happening, so our businesses are prepared for the 12,000 people, 450 racers starting on that Sunday prior to the race event
It'll be
even.
6,000 on Saturday night, 5, and so I mean, it's gonna be, each night's gonna have something, but they're probably at the end of they're talking 20-some thousand plus over 4 days. So, in attendance, you know, and so I hope we're ready for it.
Well,
I
we
mean, I
just
hope
need
the
to-
city is, the racetrack is, but I
We gotta
hope we
make
are.
sure we do it right, because if we do it right, they'll come back hopefully. right?
We're gonna do, we got a contract for 3 years, but it's,
No?
the more closer it gets, the more nervous I get, so.
Good dialogue, good dialogue. Committee
And
members.
just so you guys know, that Kyle is just, they're working, because that's the biggest thing they gotta worry about is traffic. And they're really working out. We had a trailer door fall on a racer, 62-year-old racer. Fell on him, shattered his leg, busted a bunch of ribs. He should be not here with us, but he just got out of the hospital this morning. So the plan went into place. Corey put his plan in place, how he did everything, and it worked perfectly. So, just so we kind of know.
We're still going, we're still on here.
I'm waiting to
Sound
adjourn.
good?
Nothing coming for us? Meeting's adjourned.
So now we'll keep talking again. I'm just